Good to have you tuned in. It's Take Two with Jerry and Debbie on EWTN. And one of those things in life that gets us talking to ourselves, to other people, and sometimes even at other people can be pet peeves. Debbie, that's what we're going to talk about today. But we're going to tie this into faith and spirituality. I think there's just an amazing connection between pet peeves and the virtues and patience and all of that.
I do too, Jerry. And I just have to say, Jerry, it's good to be back with you today. I'm glad you're home safely. We all prayed for you. Did you know we're praying for the gift of bilocation for you? Did you know
Well,
that?
from what I understand, one has to be holy. I guess it's not a prerequisite, but if it were, or if it is, then don't expect to see me in two places at one time anytime soon. But it's good to be back. Thanks for holding things together yesterday. I hear the show went great.
It did. We had great calls. It was wonderful. But, you were definitely missed, and the callers expressed that as well. So it's good to have you back. And so now we're talking about pet peeves, with those annoyances that are all around us. And how do we deal with them? I have to admit, Jerry, I have many pet peeves. I don't know if that's from, I don't know. I always kind of blame everything that it's because I grew up in New Jersey. I don't know. But I do have these things that just annoy me to no end. And I often think that it has to be a lesson I must learn or something I must master to try and grow in holiness. But I haven't mastered it yet, so I'm interested in hear what our listeners have to say. We're talking about pet peeves today, dear listeners, and we know you light up the phones rather quickly, so the number to dial is 1-800-585-9396.
All right, what is it that kind of trips your trigger there? For me, it's things like people doing, stupid stuff on the road when they're driving. But I'll tell you this is one thing about pet peeves, and we want to hear from you. Again, it's 1-800-585-9396. So many times, Debbie, the things that bother us are things that we do that maybe we don't like about ourselves. Not necessarily that we don't like ourselves, but we all have these things that we're trying to work on in our lives, little things, quirky things that we do that might actually offend other people. When they do those things to me, I'll just speak only for myself. When they do those things to me, boy, I just, it's really tough. You got to bite your tongue when you're driving or, all of these certain situations. So, dear listeners, how do we look at these little annoyances, these irritations in our lives and say, all right, God, I get it. I'm going to turn this into something very positive, Debbie, spiritually. I think that's the key.
Well, Jerry, you bring up a really good point because I remember in life skills training when I did that many, many years ago, they actually the teachers talked about that when something is happening in front of you or happening to you, it's mirroring you. And so we've got to look in ourselves and see what is making us respond in a certain way. And it's really something to teach us. So a lot of times when you see somebody doing something and you say, oh, I could never do that, you may have, and you don't even realize it. And it's kind of interesting how this life works because in my opinion, this is really, a training ground. And it's really an opportunity for us to learn and grow about ourselves. And people are going to be placed in front of us that are going to mirror to us exactly what's going on in us. And how do we, look at marriage. Marriage is a perfect example. Two people are put together, husband and wife, and they are expected to have everything be blissful all the time. Well, we know that's not going to happen. You've got, a man and a woman together sharing, the household, and, there's going to be those little rifts, and they are there to teach us and to push us forward. So this is an interesting topic. I'm fascinated to see that the phone lines are going so fast. And dear listeners, there's only 2 open phone lines right now. So if you want to get in, jump in at 1-800-585-9396.
All right, that is the number for you to call. You can weigh in on social media. If you're not yet someone who likes EWTN Catholic Radio on Facebook, please, you can do that right there online. You can send us a tweet. It is at Take Two Show, and Debbie and I can be reached via email. That is very simple. Take two, the number 2 at EWTN.com. But what is it that kind of gets you going, gets you wound up? And here's another thing. How have you managed? Maybe you've for a long time you struggled with a certain pet peeve. Maybe it was your spouse that did something. Maybe like me, like I said a minute ago, it's when you're out on the road. That to me, Debbie, is just the place where you see human nature just on technicolor display is when you're out driving. But for you, our listeners, how have you managed to maybe turn that around and become more patient or more virtuous or more charitable toward other people? This is one of the things we can talk about as well at 800-585-9396.
Okay, I want to share my pet peeve. You ready? I share the same pet peeve.
We've only got a 55-minute show, Debbie, so.
I said one of my pet peeves, not all of them. Okay, I share the same pet peeve as our producer, Rich Jesse, so I feel like I'm in good company. I mean, that's awesome. Rich and I, if I can speak about Rich and I, we don't really care for people that are negative around us. So negativity is something that's a pet peeve of ours. And I really feel I do get bothered when people look at the glass half empty instead of half full, and maybe it comes from the fact that I had gone through cancer. When you go through something like that, you really just have to always look at the positive in things, because especially when you're going to the doctors, repeatedly, and they keep telling you bad news, you've got to find that little kernel of positive, in the middle of it to be able to survive. So, but negativity is so dear listeners, there you go. When you call in, you got to be positive, positive, positive. What's yours, Jerry?
Well, I've mentioned a couple times, and I'm sure, again, this is you said those things that bother us often mirror what we ourselves do, and I have to agree. I'm a very impatient driver. I'm not an unsafe driver. I don't do crazy things. There are some places I travel, and I'm not going to mention specific regions of this country where people, I just don't know how they survive behind a wheel, but I definitely, I get a little impatient.
Really?
I'm thinking of it was funny. My pastor a few weeks ago at Mass, he was talking about this, and he said he even does this. He'll be coming along, driving down the street. You come up to a stop light, and you examine. There's 3 lanes. You go, all right, which one has the fewest cars in it so that I can, save as much time as possible. And then, maybe cutting in front of people or people cutting in front of you. So that's probably the one area, Debbie, that I really need to work on.
Wow. So, have you done conscious things to try and work on it, like purposely put yourself in the longest line possible?
I do. It's funny you'd say that. And I want to encourage our listeners, if you've done this too, maybe you have a particular pet peeve, something that really irritates you. I find that it really helps us to grow in virtue in this particular area if we choose to place ourselves in those situations. So, Debbie, why don't we go to a break, because we've got the phone lines are absolutely jammed right now. So we're going to take your calls here in just a couple of minutes on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie, talking about pet peeves today. It can sound like a very mundane topic, not related to the faith, but as you hopefully have heard already, as we've been talking about this, there is a very strong connection to faith, spirituality, virtue. How do you turn these things into things that make you a better person? 800-585-9396.
I begin every day asking God for help. I ask the Holy Spirit to show me the way. As journalists, we have a responsibility. As Catholic journalists, we have an even greater one. That's why I do this, because it's so much more than just news, sports, and weather. It's Christ-centered conversation.
Morning Glory with Brian Patrick. Weekdays at 7 a.m. Eastern. Streaming online and heard worldwide on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.
By her faithful vigilance at the cross, the Blessed Mother gives the faithful an example of true compassion. Like Mary, we are called to suffer with those who bear any kind of suffering. True compassion does not seek to hasten the end of life, but seeks to love those who experience the cross in all its varying forms to their natural end. To join Human Life International in this discussion, visit truthandcharityforum.org.
for tuning in to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network. We're talking about those life's annoyances, those daily annoyances called pet peeves that can maybe bother you, but we're going to kind of look at it from a different angle, because that's what we do here on Take Two, is we look at things from different angles so that we can grow in our faith. So we're going to move right along to Nancy, who's waiting in Erie, Pennsylvania. Hi, Nancy. Welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Hi.
Hi. Nancy,
Hi,
are you
Nancy.
driving? Nancy, are you
Yes.
driving? Do you
Yes.
do you know the drill? Do you have your seatbelt on and hands free?
I have my seatbelt on. It's not hands-free, but I have it on speaker, so I'm able to do it without.
There you go.
having to
Okay,
use my-
okay. We'll give
That
you a
counts.
pass. Go ahead.
Well, my pet peeve is children misbehaving in public and parents not even noticing or saying anything to them. I feel like I should say something or say something to the parents. Then again, I feel like it's none of my business. My children were certainly not angels, and I feel like I properly disciplined them. But I was in a grocery store just yesterday and watched the same boy first zooming around on a cart that was meant for handicapped people. This was about a 9-year-old boy that was perfectly healthy and normal, running up and down the aisles, trying on Halloween masks and then putting them back, eating food out of the produce, eating grapes.
Oh my goodness.
His parents are not paying any attention to him. I just wonder if I should say something to that child or say something to the parents, or I should look the other way, which is what they're doing, and that makes me mad.
Well, Nancy, I want to jump in because, like I said at the beginning of the show, I like to, kind of dismiss it and say it's because I grew up in Jersey, and, we tend to be a little impatient on things. Coming from the East Coast, that's the stereotype anyway. But Nancy, I will tell you, I have share the same pet peeve. It drives me crazy. I'll be in stores and I'll see the same thing, and I have to stop myself. I can feel my heart racing. So I share
Right.
I share that exact pet peeve. But let me share something with you that happened to me, and it backfired big time. And so maybe this could help you. And now now I choose to do it differently. So one time I was seeing a child misbehaving, and it was really kind of, for me, they were doing something I felt that was dangerous, that they could choke, and that always bothers me. And so I very nicely, just super sweet, said, "Excuse me, ma'am, I just wanted to kind of point this out to you. This might be not the right place for your child to be playing, And she snapped at me like you wouldn't believe, and just put me in my place. And then she started telling me about how she has, so much on her plate. She has a lot of kids. She does the best she could. And then I felt guilty. And so I walked away, and I thought to myself, I don't really know what their responsibilities are, or what they're dealing with. So instead, what I do when I see, this is really funny you bring this up, Nancy. Instead, when I see kids misbehaving, I take a moment and I pray from my guardian angel to their guardian angel. And just to maybe prompt that child or the parent, pray to the guardian angel's parent, that child can kind of be, that the right loving parenting skills can be imparted to that child to kind of make that child behave a little better. So that's what I do. I shifted it a little around. I know Jerry wants to jump in.
Well, in here, this is the thing. What we're trying to do is tie this topic into faith and spirituality. And it's just, it should go without saying that if kids at a young age are not taught self-control and courtesy, common courtesy, and just allowed to run wild, that's going to translate into adolescence and teenage years and young adult and adulthood, where maybe they don't have the kind of self-control, the discipline, the temperance, these kinds of things that they're going to need to live a virtuous life. So, Nancy, I don't know if you had anything else to tie on to what we've been saying here.
Her suggestion is certainly a good one, to put the burden back on me and not on them or the parents. But it's a very annoying thing, and it gets dangerous. The child zooming around in that cart could hit people or trip people, or have the cart when a truly handicapped person then didn't have one. I don't know,
Right.
but I think prayer is always a good answer.
Yes, when in doubt, Nancy, go to prayer. Oh, Nancy, you blessed our day. Thank you so much for calling in on Take Two, and we're so glad to hear your voice, and safe driving today. And we're going to be in Pennsylvania, Jerry, in what, 2 weeks? Is it 2 weeks?
Yeah, World Meeting of Families is
Wow.
coming right up. Looking forward to being a part of that great event.
That's exciting. That's exciting. Okay, I'm sure Nancy's getting excited because a lot of people are going to be coming through Philadelphia. Okay, Marcia, this is going to be exciting, Marcia, and I definitely have something to say on your comment. Marcia from Colorado Springs, Colorado, listening on Catholic Radio Network. Hi, Marcia. Welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Hi, thank you, and I'm really happy to talk to both of you.
Thank you, Marcia.
One of my top pet peeves that I've been trying to deal with in a charitable way, I'm a sacristan for daily mass at our parish, and I know there are people that genuinely have celiac disease, and they're the ones that usually ask to receive only the precious blood at communion time, and we have a separate chalice for them. Mm-hmm. The problem I have is the ones that come in and say, well, I have to have a gluten-free host, and it can't touch the other host or it'll be contaminated. And I explain to them that there is no gluten-free host. They do have a trace amount of gluten, and I suggest that if they're that sensitive, that perhaps they should receive the precious blood. And they get all bent out of shape about it. And the priests even roll their eyes sometimes over all this, and it seems like it's increasing. And so that's become one of my pet peeves, but I really am trying to work through it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Marcia, you know, it's you're very honest. You know, you brought this up, and I think it's an important issue. I know someone very, very dear to me. Many of you listening, Marcia, you may remember her Mother Miriam of the Lamb of God. She was, you know, of course, Rosalind Moss, the Jewish convert to Catholicism, and she had, the celiac issue where she could not receive the host for a long time. I believe if I have it right, I think she believed she was actually miraculously, cured or healed of that and can now receive communion. But, you know, it really is something that, Debbie, and you can probably speak to this much better than I can because you are very much involved in nutrition and health and so forth. But, boy, this is an area we've got to really try to respect, you know, the needs of other people. It's kind of like I get on, a Southwest Airlines plane. I fly Southwest all the time, and they serve their gourmet meals called peanuts. And, there are times when they say no peanuts today because there's somebody on the plane with a peanut allergy. So anyway, I don't know that it's a apples-to-apples comparison, but Debbie, you probably can weigh in on this better than I can.
Well, yeah, actually, I can, Marcia, because, and I understand your frustration. I truly do. I happen to practice, I try to practice a gluten-free diet. I don't have celiac, praise God that I don't, because that's a tough disease to deal with, especially in this day and age when everything's, mixed and they have to really watch everything. However, I do, just practice the gluten-free. I will tell you, though, I have a lot of friends who started doing the gluten-free and the gluten-free thing, and they take it to the extreme. So I couldn't agree with you more that, especially for the host, I mean, a lot of times there is no reason at all why it can't, touch each other and why it can't have a little bit of gluten, because we get gluten just, by how things are processed. Sometimes it's in how they're processed. It's in the residue of the processing formula or whatever it's done in the factories. So I can totally relate to you. The best thing that could happen is, I know that at a parish that I was at, the pastor actually gave a really great homily on it, and it was wonderful, and he talked about it, and he actually was a gluten-free pastor. He actually practiced it, but he said, please make sure, you put it in the right perspective. So those of you who have a serious disease, absolutely. Those of you who are doing it as a lifestyle change, well, you really got to kind of bend, because you can't make everybody, jump through hoops, especially during Mass, just to be able to, feed your lifestyle. Does that maybe help a little, or?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Well, a specialist put me on a special diet, and it includes no gluten, but I was tested for celiac, and thanks be to God also, I don't have it. But
Good.
I can't see where there's enough gluten in that little host that's going to hurt anything, and I do receive a regular host because I don't want to inconvenience people with my, whatever.
Exactly.
And I really appreciate your giving me a chance to spout off about this.
Well, you know what, Marcia? That's sometimes all we need to do is just to talk about things, and we can kind of put it into perspective. Because when we hold, one of the worst things we can do in this world is hold things deep inside, because it just festers inside of us. I mean, it's not a good thing. I mean, and they're coming out more and more in the medical field saying, exercise and talking about things and doing things. We have to get these frustrations out of us, or they're going to manifest into disease. So I think it's great that you shared, and I really appreciate it, Marcia, and you've blessed our day as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Marcia, for calling Take Two with Jerry and Debbie on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network. How do you deal with your pet peeves? Again, folks, this is absolutely a bullseye target when you think about it as far as a topic when it comes to our spiritual lives, our faith lives, and growing in virtue. And we're going to hear what Judy in North Dakota has to say next. Judy listens to Real Presence Radio. Hi, Judy. How are you today?
Doing good. How are you guys doing?
Good,
Just
Judy.
fine. Better now that you've called.
Pardon?
Better now that you've called.
Oh, that's awesome.
So what's your pet peeve, Judy?
Well, when we have family get-togethers, like at our house, and we have like 3 boys ourselves, and if members, like our immediate family, our kids, they know about the cell phones, that we don't really take kindly in you texting. I don't know if you're texting or you're Facebooking or what you're doing, but when we're sitting together, visiting around the table or outside or something, and someone's constantly going on their phone and all the other members of their family aren't, it just makes you, how do you, that's my pet peeve, I guess. And one of my sons, it's one of his too, he said, I'm going to call that in today and see what these guys have to say about that, how we can somehow diffuse that without hurting that person's feelings or belittling them in front of people. I don't want to do anything like that.
Right.
So.
Okay, here's a suggestion. I've got something for you, and I don't know if it's going to work, but so if it doesn't work, don't call back.
Don't blame Debbie.
Just kidding. Okay, so Judy, is this your house that you're hosting these family, or
Yes.
is it somebody? Okay,
Perfect. Yeah, our house.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the awesome thing that you can try. Right at your door, you can put a sign that says, "Today we're going to try an exercise where everybody has to leave their phones at the entrance of the door." And you post, and see if you can blanketly, see the problem with cell phones is everybody becomes too attached to them. It becomes like their best friend. And so when you go to take someone's cell phone, they feel like they're being violated. But if you place it if you make it very objective and make it an exercise, people are very open to it. As a matter of fact, you will find that people actually or willingly think it's very intriguing and will go along with it. So you post a sign at your front door and says, okay, today we're going to try something. Everybody leaves their phones at the door. And you actually have a bucket there. Everybody puts their phones in. And then they can pick them up when they leave. Do you think that could even possibly work in your family?
I could try that. What if they think it's a joke and, oh, come on, Mom, or do we have to do this or that?
Oh, okay, here's what you tell them. You tell them that you called into the Take Two show and it was suggested as one of the exercises.
Okay.
And I will stand by it, Judy. You can actually have them email me and I will say, yes, it's a valid exercise, because it actually is a valid exercise.
Okay. Is there any other way to do it? Do you have any other suggestions how you could kindly tell certain people that, that's rude? I mean, that's how we were brought up in our family with our kids. It's rude, and that's just, you have to be part of that conversation, or it's invalid, like you really don't want to be there with the group,
Right. Well, I wouldn't take it personally because, like I said, cell phones, it's become a problem with everybody because, I mean, you look at top businessmen, they have their cell phone. They'll pull them out right at a luncheon. And it's done so naturally. So I wouldn't take it too personally, but I will tell you that if you do confront it, you may have a little pushback. And I know, Jerry, you wanted to give your...
Well, you mentioned business people pulling their phone out in a lunch meeting. Sometimes you see these things on the internet and you don't know if they're made up or not, but I have to believe they're not. Young people today don't even know better in many cases. They'll go into a job interview and they're sitting there with a prospective employer. All of a sudden they get a text and they start answering the text or they answer the phone. It's like, oh, excuse me just a minute. I know you're the president of the company I'm applying to work for. Excuse me just a minute. Anyway, Judy, you can tell by the music that is time for our break here. Bless you. I hope you have a wonderful day and keep listening to Real Presence Radio throughout North Dakota. We're talking about pet peeves today on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. What gets you going and how do you overcome it? Let us hear from you. If you've wanted to go to the Holy Land, this is your year. And what better time to be there than the Christmas season? I'm Jerry Usher, inviting you to join me, Steve Ray, and our chaplain, Archbishop Samuel Aquila of Denver, on the Vocation Boom Pilgrimage to the Holy Land this December 28th through January 6, 2016. Step foot on the very spot where Jesus was born and visit the many places where he ministered, died, and rose again. For details, log on to vocationboom.com. That's vocationboom.com.
On Saturday morning, don't miss the Catholic Business Hour with your host, Dick Lyles, focusing on careers and business with a Catholic perspective.
Hi, I'm Dick Lyles. I look forward to answering your questions about career change, business strategy, overcoming obstacles at work, getting along with challenging coworkers, finding and fulfilling your life's passions, and much, much more.
The Catholic Business Hour, Saturday mornings at 11 a.m. Eastern on EWTN Radio.
Think of all the media our young people are exposed to today. MTV, movies, what passes for entertainment on TV, song lyrics that are questionable or worse. Where do they hear the message that it's okay to be chaste and modest, or that it's not crazy to practice their faith, or to believe in a God who loves them and can forgive them no matter what they do? Catholic Radio is the answer. Be sure to tell your friends and relatives about the positive programming that you hear here on Catholic Radio.
I am Father Thomas Loya, and this week on Light of the East on EWTN, as St. John Paul II would say, the Church breathes with both lungs, east and west. As both lungs of the Church liturgically place the triumph of the cross in full view, so too does the complementary nature of both lungs of the Church come into full view. On EWTN, Sundays at 11:30 a.m. Eastern.
So many great shows on EWTN. We just heard that one about Father Thomas Loya. Also, Morning Glory has kicked off with Brian Patrick. Be sure to tune into that weekday mornings here on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network. Today, it's a Take Two with Jerry and Debbie, and we're talking about pet peeves, those things that kind of, yank your chain, so to speak, or get you a little bit off center, where you just get a little bit agitated, annoyed, irritated. But really, we don't want to stop there. We want to find out, maybe what it is that kind of gets you going, but also, how do we turn these into positives? How do we maybe use it as an occasion to grow in virtue? So let us hear your take on this at 1-800-585-9396. And Albert is up next, driving through Indiana, listening on Sirius XM 130. Hello, Albert. How are you?
Hey, how you doing, Jerry and Debbie?
Good. Doing great, Albert. Thanks. Appreciate the call.
Albert, you're driving, Albert.
Well, actually, I just got to my destination, so I'm not driving now.
Okay.
And it's great to hear you, Jerry. I used to listen to you all the time on Catholic Answers.
Oh, thanks, Albert. Appreciate that.
Okay, let me get to the point here. Okay, my thing, it's kind of funny I'm calling in with this because I might be somebody else's pet peeve where I get on their nerves because of the way I am. But my thing is when people talk and say things incorrectly, like saying February instead of February, saying asking I asked my daughter's friend, what are you doing? Oh, I'm just conversating with a friend, instead of saying conversing or, or like what I hear a lot is, drivers going down the road and they're saying, oh, well, I'm going across the state of Ohio, and they know that T at the end. And everybody says it. I don't know why they do, but across is ACROSS, and they know that T. I don't know if you've heard it before, but those are my pet peeves. And how do I deal with it? I just bite my tongue and just, deal with it. I'm not going to go around correcting everybody, except my family. I get on my wife's nerves and my daughter's nerves. So
Oh, that's funny. Albert, you have brought up something, and I didn't even think about this at the start of the show when Debbie and I were sharing our pet peeves, but this is actually one of mine. And here's why. I'm obviously, in the radio business, but I got my start in radio broadcasting sports, high school sports, play-by-play and so forth. So I watch a lot of sports on TV, and I won't name the network, and actually there are several networks where the announcers, I hate it, they add an H where there isn't an H, like, his strength is really improving, or, they won, 14 straight games. And I'm going, there's an H in that word, but it's silent. Why are you pronouncing that? So, Debbie, I don't know if this is something that hits home with you or not, but when I hear this, I just want to scream at the TV and say, where are you finding these extra letters?
Well, it's kind of cute because when Albert was talking, I kept thinking, when I was growing up, it used to crack me up when people would say library instead of library. It used to drive me crazy. And it was so cute, though. But I guess I kind of chuckle at it now, Albert. I mean, honestly, because people, there's so many people that speak different languages and different dialects, and they have those, different flares. And even across the country, when I first came to Arizona, people made fun of me all the time because everything from New Jersey is AW. It's you talk, you coffee, and out in Arizona they would make fun of me all the time and say, well, it's not coffee, it's coffee. And I had to relearn everything. So I kind of chuckle at it now because I experience both sides of it, but I can totally relate. I mean, it does, it could be one of those things that can irritate you, but I guess the best thing, let's turn to prayer. I guess throw up a prayer for them, Albert. Maybe that would just maybe make you giggle a little and get through it. But I like the way you said it. I think you said, well, your family has to deal with your pet peeves. I think you said something like that. So I think that you have a good check and balance.
ASHSAS. So that's one of the ones that I hear every day on a constant.
What was that? I didn't hear that. I'm sorry.
Asphalt. Instead of saying asphalt.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Asphalt. So that's every day for me.
Oh, well, God bless you, Albert. Thank you so much for calling in. And I know you really made Jerry's day by remarking about how when you heard him on Catholic Answers and followed him on Catholic Answers, now you can follow him on Take Two. Thank you, Albert.
Thanks, Albert.
Okay, Jerry, real quickly, I got to share with you. We've got some social media coming in, so here's some more pet peeves I want to throw in there. A nice, wonderful lady just sent in this saying, what about young kids in church being a complete distraction when there are cry rooms? Ooh, that's a good one. See, there's cry rooms. You can put your children in the cry room and not distract everyone else. That's an interesting pet peeve. Or how about this one? How about how people dress for Mass?
Yeah.
There we go. Wow, we're getting some.
Or
really
how
good
about grown-ups talking and being disruptive at Mass?
During Mass, yeah.
It's not just kids, but...
Yeah. Well, I got to tell you something about that. Can I tell you something about that real quick? There was a couple at Mass about a month ago, and the wife was talking throughout the entire Mass to her husband, and a person behind them tapped them on the shoulder and said to them, you're being a distraction. And it turns out her husband was hearing impaired. And so she was trying very hard to keep him up with the Mass. And so the lady behind felt very embarrassed. She was red-faced the rest of the Mass. Yeah.
Well,
so
you
there
made
you
the
go.
point earlier, Deb, that we don't always know the circumstances, when people are acting or behaving in a certain way. We have to take that into account. Now, there are certain objective, rights and wrongs, I guess, but I think charity calls us to always try to give the other people a benefit of the doubt if we can. All right, 1-800-585-9396. We've got plenty of time to get you on the show with your pet peeve. What is it that annoys you? How do you deal with it? We can get you on the program like Joan. Joan is in southern Indiana listening to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Hello, Joan. Good day to you.
Hello. I just want to tell you guys your show is awesome. Thank you very much. And
God bless you, Joan.
Thank you. Sometimes my husband just kind of goes on and on and on and then talks about things I've heard before. And my first response is not a charitable one, but I do know that sometimes he talks just to kind of transition a little bit from one activity to another, and it does help. And so I tell myself, well, you better listen. You better listen because you never can tell when something's going to be said that you haven't heard 20 times before, and that, maybe you need to make an appointment or something like that. And then I ask God to please help me with this. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. But and it would be, if anybody else would have kind of an idea of what they do in this situation, well, I'd like to hear it.
Well, Joan, if you're open, yeah, that's great. I'm glad you're open for a suggestion, because I actually do have a suggestion. I have a person in my life that just doesn't take a breath, and I feel very, I can find, again, my heart starts racing. I'm telling you, I'm going to blame it on I'm a New Jersey Italian. What can I say? And by the way, it's Italian, not Italian. That's another one of my pet peeves, that people say Italian. It's Italian. Okay. So anyway, Joan, here's what I would suggest. Since your husband obviously wants that connection with you and your attention, and so, you can give him that attention by looking at him and connecting with him, and so he can feel like he has that attention. But you can also, women are great at multitasking. We can be very attentive and looking at somebody and doing something else. What I would suggest, and I know this we said it before, but I really mean this because it works for me, is to pray. Start saying Hail Marys, Our Fathers, while he's talking in your mind. Because you will find yourself just be totally relaxed, and you start to change your focus from the annoyance of him, constantly talking, to you start to feel very in a meditative state, and it puts you in a really great place. And let me just say this, and no disrespect at all to your husband, if you have heard his stories before, well, then you know the outcome already. So it's really not like you're not paying attention, because you've heard some of the stories before. So it's not like you're being disrespectful or anything, but it will really center you and put you in a good place. It works for me like a charm, and I would definitely suggest that. I don't know if that helps.
It does. Thank you. It's a different way to think about it.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. See, that's what's great about this show, though, Joan. This is a peer ministry. We're all in this together, and we're all growing together. And the great thing about this is why I loved the idea that Jerry had of doing Take Two, is that we, there's no kind of, when you say right or wrong, we're all human beings trying to get through this world and trying to grow closer to God. And we're all, obviously, if you're listening to EWTN, you have a great love for the faith and a great love for God. And we're all doing that. And if we do it together, it makes it A, more fun, and B, it's more supportive. We don't feel like we're alone trying to tackle this world by ourselves. So I just thank you so much, Joan. You probably helped, thousands and thousands this morning, with your comments, and thank you for taking the time on Take Two. And Jerry, I know we're going to go to break right now, and you're going to hear that beautiful music, but before we do, I have to do a little bit of housekeeping. You guys are inching along on Facebook, EWTN Catholic Radio. Please continue to like it. We're at about 2,345, give or take, and we really want to get to that 3,000 mark. So could you please invite your friends to like the EWTN Catholic Radio Facebook. You can also follow us on Twitter at Take Two Show. Also, you can reach us at take2show.com. We'd love to hear from you, but please spread the word that Take Two with Jerry and Debbie, it's a really a fresh look at life and our spirituality. So stay with us. We're going to go on a quick break. When we get back, we'll hit more calls.
60 Seconds with Mother Angelica.
What would you do if all the TVs in this country shut off? What would you do? Oh, I bet you go nuts. The kids be biting their nails. You'd be getting grouchy. And let's go for a walk. Where? Anywhere. And then we got to walk back. You can't praise it. You can't praise it. We're so attacked. What do you do when you get home at night? Click. You got to want to know all the terrible things that happened today. That's all you're going to get. I've thought of having a channel of good things. I don't think anybody listens. Just good things. Wonderful things. The sunrise, the sunset. Going in the woods and walking through the woods and feeling the presence of the Almighty God. Wow.
The people you know and trust are on EWTN.
are so glad you're with us. We're going to go to Colin next, and then Michael, and we've got other calls on the line. Take two with Jerry and Debbie. We have shared just very transparently, there are a lot of things. You know, sometimes people think that the Catholic radio hosts have it all together, you know, or we're these kind of super virtuous people. Well, if you only knew. Debbie is, but I'm not. But, you know, we've shared some of the things that kind of set us off, and these are occasions of grace, really. They're opportunities for us to take them and to work on ourselves inside. What should we want more than anything? Union with God. And even the little pet peeves in life can be situations for that. Just wanted to mention, too, tomorrow on the program, we're going to talk about, sometimes we look at God as a 911 God. All right, a little bit of a play on that. It's 9/11 tomorrow, the anniversary of that horrific occasion, that event at the World Trade Center. But how we so often turn to God in times of emergency or crisis, but that doesn't last all the time. How do we make it last? How do we not only wait until there are emergency situations, but turn to God with fervor every moment of every day? That's what we're going to talk about tomorrow. But right now, we've got a take on pet peeves from Colin in Louisiana, listening on Christ Our King Radio. Hello, Colin. Thanks for calling Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
How are you doing today?
Great.
Good. How are you?
Good. Yeah, one of the things that sets me off at times is people call concrete cement. It's not cement, it's concrete. And that cement is what you put in concrete.
Colin, I didn't even know that.
I'm learning something, yeah.
Yeah. Wait, can you explain that? So the cement is what is put in concrete?
To harden it, yes.
Oh,
And
yeah.
water,
Okay.
With
Got
water
it.
and
Right.
water and sand and gravel. And
Gotcha.
I worked for a concrete company before, and that's the reason why, it's on. And water heaters. It's not hot water heaters. If the water was hot, you wouldn't need to warm. You wouldn't need to heat it. It's water heaters.
Yeah, it's like ATM machine, right?
Yes.
Yeah, automatic teller machine. Hey, so Colin, I got a question for you. We had someone earlier mention this. So when you put cement into concrete, does it then become asphalt?
No. I tend to, and I have faults. I tend to talk too much, and I know it. And when I realize it, I try and quit it. I try. I'm the sacristan. You are talking about sacristans. Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I'm the sacristan at our church, and I'm the and altar server when needed. It's at 6:15 in the morning, so.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's not an altar server or whatever. And then on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I visit a nursing home in New Iberia, and I'm the altar server. And so and it's really, it's for retired priests. So you really, and some of them in their 90s, the one that says Mass today, Father Fry is 93 years old, and I assist him by vesting him and whatever he needs. And there's a priest there, Father Rubitai, that's 96 years old and 71 years as a priest. And I was there when I was the altar server for the 70th anniversary of his ordination. He's a Canadian, and he's really, really a gentle person, a walking saint. So, it's really, really uplifting. In fact, that's where I just come from, was the Consolata in New Iberia. It's really, really uplifting too, and they don't get a lot of visitors.
Yeah, it's. I'm glad that you shared what you did about the priests, because I actually just had a dear priest friend of mine, Father Francis White. He just passed away at, I think, 96 or 97. I had met him about 30 years ago. I literally would not be who I am or where I am or probably even doing what I'm doing had I not met him. And so it's so providential when God, helps us to have these encounters and develop these friendships. and with priests and religious. And I just want to encourage all of our listeners. When our priests and religious they get older, they're not as active as they still once were. Although it's great to hear that these priests are still able to celebrate Mass, but sometimes they can be forgotten, and we really should not only not forget them, but really truly honor them and respect them. Because Debbie, think about the literally hundreds of thousands of sacraments they've administered over the years as as other Christs in their priesthood. So I'm just so glad that this was brought up on the show.
I'm glad as well. And Colin, I just wanted to say thank you for calling, and you're doing great ministry work, and your joyous spirit shines through. You have a great sense of humor, and I'm chuckling because the next time I see the kids in the neighborhood with chalk playing on the concrete, I will make sure to tell them that it's not cement, it's concrete. So this is good. See how we're learning. Okay. Michael in Amarillo,
Thanks, Colin,
Texas.
for your call.
Thanks, Colin.
Yeah, sorry, Deb.
No, you're good. You're all good. Michael in Amarillo, Texas, listening. I love this. St. Valentine Radio. Hi, Michael. Welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Hi.
Hi.
Hey, Michael.
I was calling, I know the grandkids, they're like 10 and 14 and like that, and they won't go to Mass because they say it's boring. And, I don't really know what to do about it. And I remember, when I was a kid, well, of course, my parents, brought us to Mass, and it was boring. And, our part was to sit there and be quiet and behave ourselves, and we didn't really understand what the Mass was about or anything, till we got much older. And I'm wondering if there's any suggestions how to turn that around to where the Mass won't be boring and they'll want to go on Sundays. And a lot of Protestant churches, they have fellowship and games and all that, and which, really the idea to go to church is to worship God. But still, the kids, they like to go to those. Do you have any suggestions?
Actually, Michael, I do, real quickly, because the time is moving fast, and I do have a couple suggestions. And also, too, Michael, if you have the availability to email me at take2show.com, you can go ahead and I'll give you more suggestions. But actually, you can set the stage ahead of time. So you can ask the children to almost make it a little bit of a game. I just got corrected. It's take2 at EWTN.com, the email. But real quickly, Michael, you can ask the children not to make Mass a game, always keep the reverence, but you can ask the children, you can play a little game with them saying, okay, kids, I want you to look for certain elements during the Mass, and you play this kind of challenge with them to get them to pay attention. And for each thing that they notice, you set the stage. Like you can say, well, what happens, give me 2 sentences that the priest said in the homily that you really think made a difference. You'll be shocked. I have seen kids go in, even small kids go into Mass with notebooks, and they're taking notes because they want to win the game afterwards. So what I would suggest is to set the stage, kind of get the kids to get challenged into paying attention at Mass, and then go out afterwards and spend time and talking about Mass. You will see the children come alive. It's unbelievable. I have seen miracles with it, and I would love to share more with you, but we're running out of time. Jerry, you wanted to share.
Well, it's funny you would say that. I know a priest that I was very close to many years ago. I've moved away out of that area, but he used to say exactly that to the kids at Mass. He would say, pick one word in the homily that kind of jumps out at you, and then think about what that means to you. And they started calling him Father Pick a Word, but it really is. Kids love stuff like this. So, Michael, I don't know if that's helpful or not. The thing is, here's the thing with the Catholic Mass. I mean, a lot of non-Catholics, Protestants, evangelicals, if they don't like the worship service or what's going on, or there's too much preaching or not enough, or they don't like the music or whatever, they just go down the street if they want and go to a different church. We as Catholics, the Mass is going to be the same wherever we go. Is it boring? Well, some kids may think it's boring. Some adults may think it's boring. The key is, and this is there's really no right answer to making this happen, but it's just a matter of really assimilating what is going on at the holy sacrifice of the Mass. And so maybe some children's resources, books on walking them step by step through the Mass or what have you. But Michael, does any of that help out at all?
Yeah, I believe that'll help out. I'll sure give it a try. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Michael, for your call. We're going to get to Sheila real quick as time is getting short, but we want to hear Sheila's take on pet peeves in Edmond, Oklahoma, listening on Oklahoma Catholic Broadcasting. Hi, Sheila.
Hi, Jerry. How are you?
Doing great, thank you.
Good. Well, I have a huge pet peeve, and that is people that I have heard talk to and stuff I've just heard they have just some of the most horrible attitudes and negative things to say about people, particularly kiddos, young people, with disabilities. I have heard some of the most horrible things like, well, why did you bother to have kiddos and not, with disabilities? Why didn't you abort them and everything? And I have 2 teenagers myself who have mild learning disabilities. And, I've heard so many people say, well, about other kiddos, not mine specifically, but, well, they can't do anything. They can't get a job and take care of themselves, and they can't, do anything. And they have so many misconceptions, and as my mom would say, it just makes my blood boil. And so I thought, okay, what can I do about this? How can I turn this around into something positive? And what I have done is find myself doing is I've become a really strong advocate for people with disabilities, and I try to inform and educate people without strangling them, and educate them and say, hey, look, you're wrong. People have so many things that they can do that with disabilities have so many things they can do, and they can be so productive. I mean, my kids work and have jobs, and take care of themselves. It's like, and so many people think that they can't do anything, and it just really irritates me. So that's what I've done, is just become a really strong advocate for people with disabilities.
Sheila, let me forgive me for jumping in here. We're down to our final minute here, and you'll hear that lovely music, as Debbie calls it, here in a second. But Sheila, you have brought something up that is absolutely so important, and this can be applied to adults with disabilities, people with any kind of handicaps or what have you. The parish where I go to, there are a lot of young people with disabilities, some that I'm not sure what their condition is. It causes them to, make these loud noises and stuff at church, and everybody just knows. We accept that. We think, praise God that they're here.
Mm-hmm.
So Debbie, my takeaway today is every pet peeve, every irritation is an opportunity to grow closer to God.
I couldn't agree more. You said it so beautifully. And Sheila, thank you for calling in and sharing that. We've got to continue the conversation, Sheila. Let's continue it on Facebook, because you have some important information that we all need to learn from. Tomorrow's show is 911 God. Stay with us. Until then, have a beautiful and blessed day.